And I'm going to flip over here to the calendar view. So it's the week of May 4th through the 8th. And all the assignments, but both of the assignments, I should say, are due on Monday, May 11th. Oh boy, it's taking its time to load. So we have two assignments, like I said. One of them should be pretty familiar at this point. It is going along with our dystopian unit. There's 3 questions to answer with a short paragraph for each one. So your answer should have, or your assignment should have, a total of 3 paragraphs, so at least 4 sentences each. And some of these questions will be familiar from the last unit, but this is going along with our new dystopian unit. So if you chose a novel, you can use the novel to answer these questions. If not, I have a short story attached that you can read, and you can use the short story to answer the questions. The only one that's a little wonky for the story versus the novel is when it's asking about the character changing. It says to think back to the character that you wrote about in week 1. And just to make it very clear, if you're reading the short story, just consider whether the character changes during the story or not. You don't have to go back to the story from week 1 because it's a completely different story, of course. I will give the disclaimer: City of Specters is sadly more realistic fiction than true dystopian fiction. It is set in North Korea. And so while it is fiction still, it is a story that is not a true story. The elements that feel like what we think of as dystopian fiction are because of the fact that North Korea is a totalitarian dictatorship. Not that part isn't necessarily as fictionalized as in some of the other stories that you might read, like, again, thinking of things like the Hunger Games and the Divergent series, where it's set in the future and wars or disasters and things have happened. Obviously there was war in Korea, but again, so technically speaking, this isn't probably a true dystopian novel because of the fact that it is realistic for North Korea, again, not having been to North Korea myself, I only have outside accounts to go on. But from what I know of North Korea, it's at least somewhat realistic compared to say Pan Am or something like that. But anyway, you can still answer all the questions about it. And the last question doesn't have to relate specifically to your novel or the story. It's just an opinion question. Why do you think dystopian fiction is so popular? Because again, there are lots of series and books and things like The Giver, like The Hunger Games, Maze Runner. There's tons of them out there. So what do you think it is about it that makes it so popular? And then just again, and it does not have to be from the list that I gave y'all for the speed dating, but just in general, what's your favorite from that genre? And I say work, it can be a novel, it can be a story, it can be a movie, it could be a video game. Again, you can think about how these aspects of storytelling work in all sorts of different media. So there's that. And then I have a little quiz in here that is combining sentences practice. And I will be uploading a separate video with a PowerPoint that goes through all of these different ways that you can combine sentences. And it will, spoiler alert, have at least a few of the answers to some of the questions. So most of y'all probably can have a pretty good sense of I kept this one really simple. I only gave you two choices. Um, and this is a situation where a lot of times there are multiple ways to combine information from different sentences. So it's not like, where does the comma go? That's probably next week, maybe the week after. We will do some fun with commas soon. But for the most part, there are some pretty strict rules with commas. And, if it's either a situation where there needs to be a comma or there doesn't need to be a comma. And if there does need to be a comma, it has to go in a specific place. And in these questions, there might be some wiggle room, but I tried to make it when I was giving the wrong answer, I tried to make it pretty clear cut that one was definitely better than the other. So if the other choice might not be completely wrong, it might still combine the information from the two sentences, but in a less effective way. Sorry, I almost said a less good way, and that's just not good English, but it's late. So I thought I already had this assignment created from a previous year, and it turns out the version that I already had created just asked you to type it for yourself, and so I would have had to grade them all. And at this point in the year, this felt like an easier way to do it for all of our sakes right now. If it was earlier in the year and I could give you more feedback and we could practice it in class together, which is usually how I've done this before. We go through the PowerPoint together in class and we work through it as we go along. And if there are different suggestions, we talk about, okay, are those both equally acceptable, or is one stronger than the other, or is there a problem with how one person combined them? Under these circumstances, that felt like a little bit too much to try and do. So I will upload the PowerPoint video shortly after I make it, but it'll definitely be there before Monday morning. And that is it for this week. I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. Let me know if you have any questions or need help with anything. Take care and make good choices, guys. Miss y'all.